Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, your host, and I'm here with Dr. April Brown. And we today are going to talk about a topic that not a lot of people like to talk about because it makes them uncomfortable. But it's a real thing because we as moms don't always talk about intimacy. So Dr. Brown is here to talk about that. So Doctor, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Okay, yes, my name is Dr. April Brown. I just go by Dr. April. And what I do is I really feel like my mission is to help improve intimacy in all aspects. And when I talk about intimacy, I mean being fully present. And as moms, sometimes it's very difficult, or even single or, wives or people, women even overall, because we love to do so many things at once.
Yeah.
But when we do a lot of things at once, we're not fully present. And to have true intimacy, whether in the bedroom, whether cooking dinner, whether playing with the kids, we have to be fully present, because that is what all the medical, psychology, spiritual, all come together and say that, being fully present. So that's what I focus on. And I just love talking about it, and talking about many times we are not intimate because we don't have the time. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And learning how to, that self-care. Yes.
That's true. And I think, the old absence makes the heart grow fonder. My husband was away on a trip this week. We get along great when you're away to say, oh, honey, I love you. And I want you and stuff. And then when they get together, it's like, oh, well, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened and stuff. He's like, thanks a lot, just ruin the mood. And so how do we fix that?
I think one thing is to make sure you have enough energy for home. I think sometimes we just do so much, and we give 400, 500% to our work and everything else.
Right.
But come home, and really when we come home, that's the best customer service we should have. You know what I'm saying? So it is, yes, honey, how are you doing? I love you. I miss you. Yes. It's spending those quiet quality time, because many times in the busy life, it's not about quantity, it's about quality.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and knowing each other's needs, sometimes a better way to get certain people's attention who are very physical, is to actually give them a hug, touch, sit down, communicate, face to face versus screaming from the kitchen to the living room.
It's so true. It's so true. And I really think nowadays, because of the whole sexual harassment and all these threats, that we are starved as a human population for touch and affection. Like I go get massages sometimes because I just love, like, it feels good to me to be rubbed. And so my husband, like, I'll snuggle up and I'm like, hey, can you touch yours? Like, it's always, that's all you ever want is a back rub. I'm like, well, that works for me, but for him, like, he does not like to be touched at all, except like a hug or to be snuggled and stuff. And so I think that understanding each other's love languages and communication that way is also important, because you're right. A hug could mean so much to somebody, where someone else, you're like, oh,
Right. Yes. Yeah, definitely. But that touch is so important, because it is the first affection that we receive, even as being in the womb of our mothers. It's touch.
Yeah, it's true. Very true. So you kind of mentioned a few things, but what are the different types of intimacy?
So, of course, that touch is physical intimacy. And when the touch is around different parts of our bodies that are sexual organs, it's, sexual intimacy. But then there's also that emotional intimacy, where it's like talking about your feelings and having your feelings validated. So there's also communication intimacy, or verbal intimacy, or even nonverbal, which is great. But then there's other forms of intimacy that we don't really even talking about. The intimacy of working out together, work intimacy, the intimacy of service. A couple go and do charitable acts. There's intimate connections that you have with your children playing. There's also play intimacy. There's a variety of humor, godly, laughing, going to a comedy show, or me and my partner, we do a lot of improv, going to see art. that aesthetic intimacy of being out in nature, doing a climb,
Right.
you know?
And I think that that's the thing is it's time, right? It's spending time with each other.
Right.
It's my husband and I, he usually likes to go to bed pretty quickly because it takes him a while to fall asleep. And I'm the type that if my head hits the pillow, I'll be out. And
Right.
so there was one night that I don't know, he showed me something on his phone and we started laughing and then we started scrolling. We were busting a gut for probably 3 hours because of all these different things. And I think part of it was we were tired, but my daughter was in the other room. She's like, "What was going on last night? You guys were just cracking up so much." And that was a fun night. And we,
Right.
just
And that was
laughing.
intimate night. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was a fun night. Okay, so for the people who have lost connection with each other, and this is something I talk about in my book, that like I'm divorced and my ex-husband and I, we still talk, we still get along. And I always talk about as long as it's on the surface, it's a great relationship. If we have to go deep, that's where we have issues. And so we keep our relationship on the surface because we don't need to go deep anymore. But I'm the type of person that we spent 15 years together. We have 4 kids together. So I owe it to my children to get along with him and to make it work. That's my belief. Now, I understand that people had it really, really horrible and they ended it really horrible. And so that's a tough thing. But I think with the lost connection, what can a couple do if they just feel like, you know what, I'm not feeling it anymore?
Mm. Number one is their belief system of what they feel that their inner spirit is telling them. Okay. Yes, yes, yes. So the other intimacy that I didn't even talk about yet is that self-intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Connecting with yourself and saying to yourself, and even spending time with it, it's meditating, praying, what do I truly want to do, and that kind of stuff. Okay. Mm-hmm. And let's say it is, you feel called that I really need to try, or we need to try to make it work. Okay. Then it's really whether you see a therapist or not, but it's finding a safe time, because many times we're not truly that we've lost that connection is because we don't feel safe. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's finding a safe space to bridge that gap.
I like that a lot because I think that people don't really take the time. I think sometimes when you're feeling upset with somebody or you're not, they would rather just retract than be vulnerable because they're afraid of what either they'll be validated, which would be awesome. Rarely is that happening because the way that you presented it, usually they become defensive. Right. So let me just not talk about it. And the more you start, I feel like it's these building blocks, the more and more you start to build and build and build. Now you have a wall. I had someone really, really close to me. They were separated for almost a year. And one of them came to the other person. I mean, let's talk about humility, and said, I love you. I will do anything and everything to make this work. You've messed up. I've messed up. I don't care. Let's just put it behind us and let's just talk and let's get along. And I really thought that marriage was over for a long, long time. But the fact that one person, because I think that the other person is waiting for him to say, no, I love you, and to come to him. Somebody has to be the vulnerable. Right. And now, I mean, they're together. They've been together for years now after that. And it's such an inspiration.
Yeah, one person took the time and did some self-intimacy.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when people disconnect, it's because something got triggered. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And many times we operate based on what we saw in childhood or the hurt inner child. Yeah. So when you learn to heal that inner child, you're much able to be fully present to deal with the issues at hand.
Right. Then isn't it true also that you have women and men have different ages where their sex drives are higher or lower, right? I think women, is it women are more as they get older and men are younger, or correct me if I'm wrong?
Yeah, that's part of it. Part of it. Okay. But the other thing with the sex drive is that the body keeps score.
Okay.
So remember, that means that the body remembers every touch.
Right.
Okay, so trauma does that. The thing is, some of us, when we're stressed, we're an accelerator. We want more touch. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I want more intimacy. Others, when they're stressed, please, I don't want to be touched. Yeah, knowing if your partner is an accelerator or breaker is also important. And as women, you're right that sometimes later on in life, 30s, 40s, it's high sex, but also it takes a little bit longer to warm up our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so when you're, 20, it's like that. So man, yes, it takes like more than 20 minutes. Yeah. And then of course, as women, we don't like the same stuff.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you can't do the same way. Yeah.
They can have their pork chop and beans every single night for dinner, and the woman's like, let's try this. Let's try this. That's so funny. That's funny. All right. So if someone's lost a desire for sex or energy, they feel like they don't have anything, what is your recommendation?
One is self-intimacy.
Okay.
I think many times we feel like the man should know our bodies. You know what I'm saying? They should know. Yeah. But in reality, it's our responsibility to know our bodies so we can teach them.
Okay.
Okay. So, and being comfortable in our bodies. Mm-hmm. Like some women can't even look at themselves naked. And I think you need to be able to do that. You know what I'm saying? And be comfortable, because when you're intimate, if you're thinking about, oh my gosh, I don't want to see my belly, this gray hair, I should have done this. But when you think of stupid stuff, you've left the scene.
Because you're so self-conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one thing. Like I said before, you do need energy.
Wait, say that again.
Like I said before, you need energy. So you can't just give out everything and come home empty, exhausted, and feel like, oh my gosh, he's ready to go. The third thing, of course, is we're emotional beings. Mm-hmm. So overall, men are very visual. Mm-hmm. So sometimes they feel like, oh my gosh, I worked out. Why isn't she like? But if any men are listening, it's that emotional piece. That's what you want. You know what I'm saying? If you go and help out with the kids, do all the dishes,
the back rub,
yes. She's like, wow, yeah, I do notice those abs now. But before she couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah. And oh my gosh, that's so true, because especially if the guy, like, guys, listen up if you're listening, because if the guy does something he normally doesn't like to do, here's an example. Again, my husband's going to hate me, but he hates to do the dishes. Like, and when I say pots and pans, like, he'll do the dishes in the dishwasher, no problem, no questions asked. He's happy to do that. But a pot and a pan that takes you like 2 or 3 minutes to, not even that, to wash, it's overwhelming. He hates that. So if he were to do that for me, that to me sends a huge message that, honey, I love you so much that I don't want you to have to do it. So I'm going to take care of it for you. Wow. That's one less thing that I can check off my list that's done.
Right. Now and that's your aroused.
Yeah. It's the secrets of women. Because you always say, oh, let's talk about the secrets of men. No, there's secrets of women too.
Yes.
Off the plate that they have overloaded from Thanksgiving dinner of tasks to do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So you mentioned vacation counseling. Can you expand on what that means?
Oh, vacation counseling is my couples retreats. Mm-hmm. We do one couple at a time. So couples come here to Florida and we have them stay in a vacation rental. And this is really, like you're saying, those couples who've lost connection. Mm-hmm. This is really a good thing for them. We do one couple at a time. Okay. So it's only, we're focusing on you. You come here, stay in a vacation rental, and me and 1 or 2 other therapists come to you guys and provide about 15 hours of intense therapy.
Wow.
So of course, we're going to get marriage counseling or relationship counseling. We're going to do, of course, since I'm intimacy, sex, we're also going to do some individual counseling. And many times if you have trauma, affairs, addictions, whatever the case may be, we are able to just solely focus on that. And we teach you how to play. Because many couples, when they think about sexual intimacy, it's like, oh, I don't want anyone to think about it as a chore. Mm-hmm. Something I have to do. Because it shouldn't be that way. It should just be playing. Mm. If we keep it simple like that, without all this performance stuff, and just play together.
Interesting. That's amazing that you offer that. That's really cool. So yes. How many people, like, when somebody comes to you and they're in trauma and they're in crises, when they leave, can you describe the change that happens with them?
Yeah, you can actually see it when they first come. In many of these places, they have couches in the gate. They're sitting on opposite ends of the couch. Maybe the husband's upset they're not having sex, but there's also been some emotional stuff going on. Yeah. And so they're very distant, and they're very defensive in criticism and all that. Okay. And we're able to, my job, honestly, as a therapist, I see my job is to help you guys see each other. That is my job.
Wow.
And so first I have to have you see yourself. So we work on that. And then I can help you see the other person and vice versa. So by the end, then they're laughing, we're joking, we're taking pictures, we're hugging, we're sometimes on the beach because we do a lot of these ceremonies on the beach. Yeah, they're like, wow, they are relaxed. And the thing about vacation counseling is all that trauma and drama that we had to go through, they leave it there and they don't ever have to address that anymore because we heal that.
Have you had couples that have come back just because they've gone through it once and then they come back, or no?
Yes, after maybe 3 or 4 years, they want to come back and do some more discussions or talk. Maybe their kids are at an older, because we do also talk about kids and all this other stuff. Yeah. And the adjustments there, or what other things they can tweak. Because if you come back, then we can also tweak more in the sense of sexual intimacy and different things you can do to spice that up and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
So how did you get into this?
How did I get into this? Yes. I think it was my higher power. It's inspired me to counseling a little bit different. And with retreats or intensives, we have more time. So it's because I do a lot of hour-long counseling sessions, but you only have an hour. But when you actually have time, like the whole day with the couple, and we can play, I don't just sit you on the couch and do therapy all day. That's kind of boring. We get Legos out, color. We go through a whole bunch of different things. Yeah. And to see that change, it's remarkable.
I love that. Yeah. How long have you been doing this?
That part, I've been doing that for like 5-6 years now. We're 98% effective.
Wow.
Yes. So I'm really, really proud of that, in that aspect.
That's crazy. Because I've been to counseling with my first husband and my second husband, because it's hard to transition when you have kids and so forth. So we try to be proactive. But both of them, I'll just be honest, both times when we've gone to a counselor, some of those counselors, they either say, why are you here? Like, you guys, there's no hope. So how do you find a counselor that is effective, I guess is the word? Because sometimes we've gone to ones and their own, meaning the counselor's own stuff comes out. And so he one of them told him, because she was bitter and angry toward men. So she basically was like, this guy's a loser. He's horrible. You just need to move on. And then told my kids to do certain things that I was appalled, because those are not our values. And I was absolutely angry about it. And so how do you choose somebody that isn't like that they don't use your time as their counseling session? Because I find that so often.
Right. One of the things that I'm a Gottman certified therapist. And one thing, Gottman, G-O-T-T, I do like about the Gottman method is there's an assessment that goes over about 98 aspects of a relationship. And if a person really, if they're Gottman certified or whatever, they know how to use the assessment, that really helps, keeps it focused on the couple, but it's also no finger pointing. You understand what I'm saying? So that's one thing. The other aspect is, of course, you want a therapist that aligns with your belief system. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at their profile and seeing if they believe in what you believe in some aspect, but also interviewing counselors. Really, when you're in a therapeutic room, whether it's a couple or whatever, the counselor is supposed to step in your shoes and come from that perspective. We're not supposed to put our own stuff in there. Yeah, and if you feel like you're not connecting, of course, then you don't continue to spend your money, go somewhere else. Because I know I'm not for everybody, and not everybody's for me. So.
And I think that's something that, I mean, you seem amazing. So I definitely want to talk to you off camera, but I just want people to know that exactly that sometimes don't give up, because we then We fired that one and we went to another lady and she saved our marriage. And so I really do think that there's a time, there's a place, and there's a person for everybody. And that like in my book that I wrote, the Before the I Do, that it is so vital that people spend, in my opinion, some of them spend 20, 30, $100,000 on a wedding. And a couple months later, a couple years later, they're like, it's not for me. See you later. And had they taken the time to spend money on counseling to save their marriage, it probably would work, And again, I'm not talking about the abusive. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about if you're going to spend as much time and energy and money trying to save your marriage as you did planning your marriage,
Right. Do premarital counseling.
Yeah.
Yeah, to work out issues prior, even to make sure you are all, compatible in some aspect. Because when I do couples counseling, one thing I don't want to ever change is people's value system.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll say that. I say, yeah, I can help you compromise and stuff, but I'm not going to change your value system. So sometimes that happens in a relationship where a couple gets together. I have a variety of them. And and one of them, their value system has changed. You know what I'm saying? They believe in open relationships, a variety of stuff.
Yeah.
And so what you don't want to do is change your value, because you change your value system, you change you.
Mm-hmm.
And then you wake up and you don't even know you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what I don't want, what people don't realize, is you have children watching. Yeah. And that's how you develop relationships. I think of themselves. Yeah. So, yeah.
And that was my biggest concern too. And why I think my kids are screwed up, because they watched, and unfortunately, one of us, not me, like tried to manipulate where your mom has done this or your mom has done that. It's not fair to the child, and the child is watching everything. And so now they're afraid to commit to marriage because of what happened between my first husband and I. And so I'm like, you guys, you got to get some help with that. You have to get some counseling. And gratefully they are. So, and I did it right after the divorce as well. But yes, the children are watching. And I always think, do I want my 19-year-old daughter or my 19-year-old son to either treat their soon to be or their prospective that way, or do they want to be treated that way? And if the answer is no, then why are you still in this relationship?
Right. Exactly. And if you're going through a relationship or a divorce and you do have a partner who is, I know you feel like maybe abusive or whatever the case may be, it is so much better, and I've been there, not to say anything negative about the child's other parent. Yeah. No sense in saying the kid will figure it out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I never said anything negative about our daughter and father, but I never said anything negative about him. Yeah. But as she grew older, now she's an adult, she's figuring it out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And sometimes I'm a sounding board, and sometimes I say, you need to go talk to a therapist about this, because I no longer speak to her father. But yeah, I didn't add baggage to her. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. No, and it is hard. It is hard, but that is a huge piece of advice, is because they're 50% you and they're 50% him. And I become very, very frustrated at times. And I've said things that I probably shouldn't have, because it's not fair to the child, and they can see it themselves. And when I say that, I've validated their feelings, and I shouldn't have probably agreed with them. So it's a learning curve. It's a learning experience. None of us grew up thinking, I always thought I'd have this lasting marriage. I would have been 30 years next month had I still been in it. And so it's hard to admit that, okay, I wasn't successful in that. But at the same time, you also have to make sure that you're still true to yourself and authentic. Right.
And also have gratitude.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I would do it all over just to get my daughter.
I know. I actually, my father-in-law, I love him. He's like one of the most kind and caring men. When the marriage ended, he's like, marriage cost me X amount of money. And because he's a very financial money person. Yeah. I just turned to him and I said, and you have 4 wonderful, beautiful grandchildren to show for it. Wasn't it worth it? He never said another word. And they came over for Thanksgiving dinner last. We still have a great relationship, but yeah, you cannot regret anything, because everything you can learn from and grow on.
Yes, definitely.
So talking to your 19-year-old self on a park bench, and you sit next to your 19-year-old self, what advice would you give her?
So my 19-year-old self, that's actually when I met him. So,
I got married at 19. Wow.
just a full disclosure, I grew up Catholic in a small school, and then I went to a big university. Okay, so I had no idea about mental health, illnesses, or anything like that. So I would tell myself that, April, that it's okay to be herself. It's okay to be unique, and there are going to be people that are totally different than you, but you don't have to accept. If you don't have to accept them pushing your boundaries and just saying yes to them, just because you're like, oh, maybe they seem smarter than you. You got it. You know what's you. So
I like that.
Yeah.
And it's important because we're raised a lot of times, or I was, and culturally, that you respect your elders and you do what they say and you do this and that. You know what? Sometimes it's not okay what they do and what they say. It's okay for you to disagree with that. Appreciate their differences. That doesn't mean you have to be them.
Yes, exactly.
Well, any other questions I did not ask you that I should have?
No, I think you've asked them all. Just for mothers out there, just to know, and for women out there, that it is okay to know thyself. And remember, I guess one thing I want to say, that people treat you the way you treat yourself. People treat you the way you treat yourself.
Yep.
So it's okay if sometimes you have to take a break and you have to rest. Doesn't mean you're a bad mom, you know, or whatever, because sometimes we feel like we have to be so busy doing so much things, got to put the kids in 50 million things, but it's okay. It's about the quality.
I love that. Thank you. Well, if people want to get a hold of you or like sign up for your retreat, which sounds amazing, how do they find you?
Okay, they can just go into my website at draprilbrown.com. April spelled like April and Brown spelled like Brown. Okay. Yeah, draprilbrown.com.
And how often do you do these retreats?
At least once a month I try to. So we can usually work around you guys' schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dr. April, thank you so much for coming on. Intimacy is an important part of our lives. And the fact that you're willing to dedicate your life to help people, especially married couples, I just commend you for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
And Unbreakable Mompreneurs, if you are struggling and you're just feeling like I'm out of touch, I don't have energy, I've lost hope, reach out to Dr. April and come back to yourself. Self-intimacy is an important thing, and you have to be happy with yourself so that you can then be happy with other people. It starts with you. So go out and make it a great day. See you later.